What would you do if your own wife humiliated you in front of her family, then whispered something intimate to her own brother? I stayed silent, but I was already plotting a quiet, calculated revenge. This is the shocking story of how I exposed their darkest secret at a public event and walked away as the man they all underestimated. Before we continue, thank you so much for your support. Every like, comment, and view means the world to us. We're on a mission to reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and we'd love for you to be part of that journey. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and let's grow together. Now, let's proceed. I always believed that love, no matter how bruised, could be healed with time, patience, and understanding. Melissa was my wife, and I wore that truth with pride, even when things started to shift. I noticed the cold shoulder she gave me at home, how my texts went unread for hours, and how she laughed more around her family than she ever did when it was just the two of us. But what happened that evening at her father's retirement dinner didn't just hurt. It peeled off every illusion I had built around us and left nothing but raw betrayal. The dinner was held in her parents' massive estate just outside town, where her father was being celebrated for 40 years of service as the CEO of a shipping company. Everyone was there: colleagues, family friends, in-laws I barely knew, and relatives I had never even heard of. The room buzzed with chatter and laughter, and the chandelier above us cast a soft golden glow over tables lined with fine cutlery and wine glasses that looked untouched. I had dressed in my best navy blue suit, even got my shoes polished to a mirror shine, hoping Melissa might look at me and feel something again, anything close to the love we once shared. She didn't. In fact, she barely acknowledged me when we arrived. She clung to her stepbrother, Tristan, a man I never liked. Something about him always felt off, not just arrogant, but oddly possessive of her. But because he was her stepbrother, I buried the suspicion deep, convincing myself I was being irrational. But that night, the mask slipped, both theirs and mine. As we sat down to dinner, Melissa sat between Tristan and her mother while I took a seat directly across. Her father was giving a speech, and everyone was raising glasses in tribute when Melissa suddenly turned the spotlight on me. She raised her voice just loud enough to be heard across the table and said, "And here's Darren, the most useless man I've ever had to drag through life." The table erupted in nervous laughter, but it wasn't the kind you hear when a joke lands. It was the kind people give when they don't know where to hide their discomfort. I felt the heat rise to my face. My chest tightened, but I said nothing. I smiled, a hollow one, and took a sip of my drink to cover the tremble in my hands. I locked eyes with her, silently asking why. She looked back with amusement, then leaned sideways, right onto Tristan's shoulder. And then, just loud enough for me to hear, she whispered, "You're more sweet than him," followed by a giggle that made my stomach churn. Everything around me blurred for a moment. I couldn't hear the clinking glasses anymore. Couldn't taste the wine. All I could do was stare. Tristan gave me a look. A smug one, the kind a man gives when he knows he has something you've lost. It wasn't just a whisper. It was a warning, a declaration, and a punch to the gut rolled into one. I excused myself quietly, claiming a headache. Melissa didn't look up. No one stopped me. I walked out of that room like a ghost, silent, forgotten, and invisible to the people who once claimed to be my family. But as the night air hit my face outside, I made a decision that would change the course of everything. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I wasn't going to yell, cry, or plead. Instead, I was going to watch. I was going to listen. And when the time was right, I would bring the entire charade down brick by brick, with proof, with silence, and with a calm so calculated it would haunt them for years. That night, I slept in the guest room of a friend's house. I didn't want to go home, not because I feared her, but because I didn't want her to see me wounded. She didn't deserve that satisfaction. The next morning, I called in a favor from a college buddy who now worked in private surveillance. I told him I wanted every message, every move, and every whisper between Melissa and Tristan recorded and documented. "Give me a month," he said. "We'll find the truth." A month was all I needed. Because while she thought she was winning, while she mocked me behind closed doors and smiled in family photos, I was building the case that would bury her reputation, her pride, and the filthy secret she was trying to keep wrapped in her brother's arms. I spent the next few weeks playing the part of the oblivious husband. Melissa continued to throw little jabs at me, subtle in public, cruel in private. But I no longer flinched. I let her think I was still the same silent, broken man who couldn't stand up for himself. Meanwhile, I kept my ears open, my phone locked, and my plans quiet. My friend Mark, the one handling the surveillance, told me to be patient. "You're not just trying to catch a cheater," he said. "You're about to expose a scandal that'll make the entire family crumble." The first clue came through a pinged location. Melissa had told me she was going to a charity event one night, but her car never made it there. Instead, she parked near Tristan's penthouse, stayed for 4 hours, and left just before midnight. The cameras caught her entering with a bottle of wine and leaving with her lipstick smudged and her dress slightly wrinkled. Still, I told Mark not to send me the footage. Not yet. I wasn't ready to see it. I needed the full picture. I needed more than one night. I needed a pattern, and Mark gave me one. Over the next 3 weeks, we gathered more. Phone logs, text messages, even audio from a bug Mark slipped into her car during a routine wash. Every piece added to the puzzle. A puzzle that revealed something far more disturbing than an affair. Melissa and Tristan weren't just sleeping together. They had been doing so for years, since before we even got married. They called each other soulmates in their texts. They had code names for me. Tristan referred to me as the donkey, while Melissa laughed and called me the monthly allowance. It wasn't just adultery. It was premeditated manipulation, a long con where I had been nothing more than the wallet and the shield for their twisted game. And worst of all, her parents knew, or at least suspected. But they turned a blind eye because I provided status, stability, and the illusion of a perfect marriage. I felt sick. I couldn't eat for 2 days after Mark sent me the audio where Melissa said, "Tristan, if we play this right, we'll be rid of him by summer. I just need that inheritance to kick in." That's when it shifted. I was no longer just hurt. I was ignited. My silence was no longer just survival. It was my weapon. And I planned to strike where it would hurt the most: her pride, her image, her family's empire. Melissa came from a long line of pretenders, people who wore virtue like a mask while burying their rot behind money and charm. I wasn't just going to unmask her. I was going to tear the whole stage down in front of everyone watching. I contacted my lawyer, not for a divorce yet, but for access to our shared assets, property titles, and a very important clause Melissa had forgotten: our prenup. You see, Melissa always assumed I signed it in desperation. She didn't know I had it amended quietly before the wedding, with her distracted and drunk on champagne dreams. That clause, it stated that in any case of infidelity with a family member, her claim to any asset, property, or future inheritance from me would be void. A single breach, and she'd walk away with nothing but her clothes and shame. But I wasn't done. I planned my strike for the one place they would least expect it: Melissa's father's charity gala. It was a black-tie event held in honor of their Family Values Foundation, filled with politicians, business executives, reporters, and socialites who clung to her father's name like it could save them from their own scandals. The perfect audience. I booked the projector. I paid extra for a 5-minute slot to honor the family with a surprise video tribute. Everyone assumed it was one of those cheesy montages filled with childhood photos and old interviews. I let them think that. Even Melissa, in her glittering silver gown, stood beside me, beaming at the crowd, playing the perfect wife once again. As the lights dimmed, I stepped aside and watched the screen light up. First came their texts. The romantic ones, the vile ones, the ones where they plotted to humiliate me. The crowd gasped. Then came the photos. Melissa in Tristan's arms, in hotel rooms, in his car. The audio followed. Melissa's voice, dripping with mockery. He's too dumb to notice. He thinks I love him. Sweet, stupid Darren. The room fell into stunned silence. Melissa froze. Tristan, who had been drinking near the stage, dropped his glass. Her father stood up, jaw clenched, while her mother burst into tears. The illusion was shattered. And I simply walked to the mic and said, "They called me useless. I think tonight proves otherwise." Melissa ran off the stage, chased by flashes from paparazzi who had just found the scoop of the year. When I walked off that stage, I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. The applause hadn't come, just a hush that wrapped the room like a shroud. The truth was still settling in. Faces I had seen smile at Melissa now stared at her with disgust, horror, and something even worse, pity. She was in the corner, her silver dress shimmering under the lights like foil hiding a rotted core. Her mascara ran like ink down her cheekbones as Tristan whispered frantically into her ear, trying to pull her toward the exit. But the doors didn't open fast enough. No door could shut out what I had just released. I took my seat again, slow and calm, just as the murmurs began. Phones buzzed. Heads turned. I saw Melissa's father whisper something to her mother, something sharp. She nodded and stormed off after Melissa like a woman possessed. And then, in that ocean of stunned guests, my lawyer walked in, dressed like he was just another attendee. He gave me a brief nod and approached the event coordinator. The next part was set. What Melissa and Tristan didn't know was that the footage I showed was just part one. I had emailed the full folder. With timestamps, metadata, and surveillance documentation, to every major publication I could think of, the Tribune, iNews, even gossip tabloids that thrived on family scandals. Not to mention the state licensing board that oversaw her father's shipping contracts. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. Tristan's company, which was partially funded by Melissa's father's network, had been tied to deals under both names. Deals now tainted by ethics violations. I wasn't just ending my marriage. I was ending their empire of pretense. The fallout was instant. By morning, the story was trending across platforms. Family Foundation crumbles as affair and fraud allegations surface. My inbox exploded. Journalists, legal advisors, even old college friends I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me. Melissa, however, didn't call. Not once. Maybe she knew better than to try. But Tristan? He did. 2 nights later, at 2 a.m., my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. His message was short and shaking. "You've ruined everything, man. You're a monster. I hope you rot." I replayed that voicemail twice. Each time, it sounded sweeter. Within a week, Melissa had been disowned by her parents. Her mother issued a press statement claiming she was devastated by the actions of her daughter and stepson, and that the family would be re-evaluating the future of all foundation programs. Melissa's father stepped down from his board positions and retired indefinitely. Tristan disappeared from the public eye altogether. Rumor was he had left the country. No one wanted to touch him, not with what I exposed. But the sweetest moment came in court. The prenup Melissa had mocked years ago, just a formality, she had laughed, was the sword that split everything. The judge read out the clause that voided her claim to any marital property due to intimate betrayal involving a direct family member. Her lawyer tried to challenge it, citing emotional duress and unusual circumstances. But the evidence I submitted silenced the courtroom. The photos, the voice recordings, the dates, it was airtight. She got nothing. No house. No car. No inheritance. She walked out of that courtroom a ghost wearing high heels. I wish I could say I felt victorious. But in truth, I felt free. Like I had taken off a weighted coat I didn't realize I had been wearing for years. Melissa had once been my partner, my love, the woman I dreamt of building a life with. But she turned into a poison I drank daily, convincing myself I needed it to survive. Now I was clean. People ask me if I miss her. If I regret blowing everything up in such a public, humiliating way. I don't. Because when someone leans on another man's shoulder, especially her own brother's, and whispers you're not enough, they don't deserve a quiet ending. They deserve exactly what they tried to give you, emptiness. These days, I live on the coast. Quiet town, fresh air, real people. I run a small consulting firm and mentor young men trying to find their voice again. I tell them the truth most don't want to hear, that sometimes the best revenge isn't to scream louder. It's to build higher and let the wreckage behind you speak for itself. As for Melissa, the last I heard, she tried to start a podcast on relationships. It never got past episode 3. And me? I may have been called useless once, but now the only thing I'm useless to is pain. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us.